In the headlines, North Korea lifts its ban on a shuttered inner Korean industrial complex in Gaeseong, raising hopes for regional amity. We'll look into what could be behind Pyongyang's unusually conciliatory move. Massive and extreme heat is now affecting the country, with parts of the nation melting under the hottest day in 71 years, with the mercury touching 40 degrees Celsius in one spot. Plus, U.S. President Barack Obama cancels a summit with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, initially set for next month, over Moscow's decision to grant asylum to fugitive intelligence leaker Edward Snowden. Well, these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Thursday, August 8th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this evening with record-setting heat in the nation. Today was one of the hottest days of the year in Korea, with the southeastern port city of Ulsan reaching 40 degrees Celsius.
Most parts of the country were under a heat advisory, and that, coupled with high humidity levels, are leaving people sweating bullets. Connie Lee has more on the extreme heat in Korea.
It's a hot, sticky, and sweaty summer, and it's not likely to end anytime soon. Korea is in the midst of a heat wave, with temperatures reaching at least 30 degrees Celsius nationwide on Thursday. On top of the heat, high humidity levels have turned much of the nation into a sauna. On Thursday, the humidity in the capital region went beyond 70%, which is not too different from the steamy conditions in most saunas, where the humidity is usually above 90%. The hot and humid days are especially hard on people who have to work outdoors, such as street vendors, who say the weather isn't helping business either.
It's difficult working outdoors under these hot conditions. I don't sell as much, and I have to be careful not to let sweat fall into the food.
But there is one type of business that seems to be doing well these days. Dry cleaners are getting an extra influx of customers who have moldy clothes that need saving.
When people return home from a vacation, they're finding mold on their clothes because of the high humidity levels. So we have more customers coming in to get their clothes cleaned.
The Korea Meteorological Administration says that high temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius and beyond are expected all across the nation through next Thursday. And although the monsoon season has officially ended, residents can also expect sporadic rain showers until Saturday. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
For those of you living here in Korea, your utility bills may begin to look different come October.
The government is set to charge higher electricity rates to conserve energy. Fielding questions on the price hike, Energy Minister Yoon Sang-jik said on Wednesday that lower discounted electricity prices could be offered during special off-peak times. He said the government was reviewing a number of ways to improve the current billing system and that the new system would be announced as soon as October. Temperatures rose as high as 40 degrees Celsius in some parts of Korea on Thursday, pushing the nation's electricity demand to its highest level so far this year. The Korea Power Exchange responded by issuing a level 1 warning in the afternoon, which comes when the country's electricity reserves fall below 5 million kilowatts. And there were no big surprises at Korea's central bank today.
The Bank of Korea left its key interest rate unchanged for the third straight month in August, amid cautious optimism that the nation's economy will stay on a path of moderate recovery. Arirang News' economic correspondent Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
The Bank of Korea kept its key interest rate steady for the third straight month in August, as most had expected. Following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, the central bank left the rate unchanged at 2.5%, saying the economy at home is expected to continue on the path to recovery in the coming months.
The domestic economy is sustaining its moderate pace of recovery, with exports rising 2.6% in July from the same period a year earlier.
The Korean economy grew 1.1% in the April to June period from the previous quarter, rising above 1% for the first time in 9 quarters. The central bank said that the growth came on the heels of its rate cut in May and parliamentary approval of a plan to supplement the state budget. It went on to say, however, that the U.S. Federal Reserve's possible stimulus pullback and the slowing Chinese economy could have a negative impact on Korea.
Once the Federal Reserve's stimulus tapering goes into effect, there is a possibility for foreign investment funds to rush out of the Korean market. This could raise the market's interest rate.
The country's inflation rate, meanwhile, remained in the 1% range for the 9th straight month in July, running far below the central bank's 2.5% to 3.5% target band. Experts expect the central bank to hold its key interest rate at 2.5% throughout the year if the nation's economy manages to sustain its current pace of recovery. 황지혜, Arirang News.
The Korean government has finished revising the nation's tax code as it seeks to generate more revenue to finance a long list of social projects.
From raising taxes on high-income earners to taxing religious leaders who used to be exempt from taxation, our Kim Young-gil reports on the new system.
The Korean government announced the tax code overhaul on Thursday, signaling major changes to come in how tax is configured and who will shoulder a larger share of the burden.
We've revised the tax law to put high-income earners into a higher tax bracket.
But experts say it's salaried workers who may suffer the most. The government estimates that around 4.3 million workers will see their taxes increase starting next year. People whose annual incomes range from $36,000 to $62,000 will have to pay an average of $143 more in taxes. The figure will rise to $296 and $880 for people with incomes of $62,000 to $72,000 a year, and $72,000 to $80,000 respectively. Those who earn more than $270,000 a year will have to pay an average of $7,000 more in taxes next year.
I think the government is taking advantage of salaried workers. There are so many other people who should be paying tax.
The government has also decided to impose taxes on earnings by monks, priests, and other religious leaders starting in 2015. The decision puts an end to 45 years of controversy over whether religious leaders should pay tax. Members of the clergy are currently exempt from taxation, as their work is regarded not as labor but as a spiritual service. The government needs to revise or amend 15 related tax laws for the new tax code to go into effect, and it plans to submit the 15 revision proposals to both the Cabinet and the National Assembly for a vote between August and September. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
So it was North Korea that blinked in the end just minutes after South Korea announced measures to permanently shut down the inter-Korean industrial complex in Gaeseong.
The isolated regime lifted its ban on the shuttered factory zone, raising hopes for resuming operations at the complex. Our Hwang Sung-hee has the analysis on what might have spurred Pyongyang's sudden openness to talks.
With fresh hopes for a swift normalization of their jointly run factory zone in the north, the two Koreas will return to the negotiating table next Wednesday. Experts say North Korea's surprise offer to hold a 7th round of talks on reopening the Gaeseong industrial complex shows its determination to save the joint business park. The proposal came just an hour after Seoul announced that it would hand out insurance payments to more than 100 South Korean companies with operations in Gaeseong. Once the businesses receive the money, the government acquires the rights to the company's assets at the border town, and many saw the move as Seoul's first step towards a complete closure of the factory park. Pundits say North Korea probably thought likewise and rushed in with its proposal for dialogue. The joint business park has been a source of hard currency for the cash-strapped nation, raking in around $80 million in workers' salaries per year. An upcoming joint military exercise between South Korea and the United States, scheduled to begin on August 19th, may have been another factor that made the North anxious. Once the military drills begin, tensions could rise again on the Korean peninsula, sweeping away the current momentum for talks. But some remain skeptical about Pyongyang's motives, saying that North Korea has not changed its stance on the issue of providing safeguards against future closures of the complex. They say the North may be crafting an excuse to blame Seoul if the complex faces a complete closure, and would likely say that it tried its best to save the last remaining symbol of inter-Korean economic cooperation. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye reportedly has no plans to grant any special pardons to mark Korea's Liberation Day on August 15th.
Presidential officials said Thursday that if President Park were going to use her clemency power next week, preparations would have already been underway, but they add the issue has not even been discussed in meetings so far. Korean presidents in the past have often issued pardons to commemorate important holidays, something that President Park was highly critical of when she was a candidate in last year's presidential election. Startups looking to raise capital have had about a month to try out a stock market designed specifically for them.
The Korea New Exchange, or the KONEX, is Korea's new market platform. It was born out of President Park Geun-hye's vision to promote an environment where startup businesses can flourish.
So how well is the market doing so far? Our Leon joins us in the studio. So Leon, does this look like a good way to help these fledgling businesses grow?
Hi, Gaeseong. Well, most say it's too early to say to really gauge this new market's potential. Let's first hear from one of the companies that's been listed on the KONEX since day one.
What you're seeing is the production process of an ingot, aluminum heated past its melting point and molded into bars that can later be used to make bicycles or auto parts. The manufacturer of these ingots is Standard Firm, a startup that is preparing to get listed on the tech-heavy Kosdaq market. The company's shares jumped by more than six-fold after being listed on the KONEX last month.
We are planning to get listed on Kosdaq, but we feel that KONEX is a good opportunity for us to practice before moving up. We are learning a lot, particularly through our contacts with investors.
Like Standard Firm, startups welcome the creation of their own market.
The United States has its thriving Silicon Valley, but over here in Korea, there's the so-called Death Valley. The term was coined to describe the many fledgling companies which can't acquire the necessary funds to expand and end up going bust.
That's because, unlike Silicon Valley, there's no ecosystem in Korea to finance an entrepreneur's idea into a business. As a result, most startups will have to rely heavily on bank loans for their financial needs, thereby incurring mounting interest burden. So the KONEX comes as a financing means, saving fledgling companies from heavy debt burdens. But when taking a look at its first month, the KONEX saw a very low trade volume. And out of the 21 listed companies, only 2 saw their stocks trade on a day-to-day basis.
Right, so Leon, the trade volume was on the decline. So when can we actually expect active trading on KONEX?
Well, experts say the limited amount of activity that's being seen on the KONEX is quite normal at this point. One thing to note here is that because of the risks that are involved in investing in these startups, the government limited the number of players that can invest in this KONEX. No company on this market has been listed through typical means, which is, of course, public offering. That means only existing owners or the likes of venture capitals can trade in the market. So unless these specific groups of investors decide to sell, nobody can buy. Also, to put this into context, let's take a look at how Kosdaq performed in its first month when it was set up back in 1996. So as you can see, the average trade volume in the first month for KONEX doesn't differ much with that of the Kosdaq. So it's hard to say, in looking at the data at least, that KONEX is off to a bad start.
But nonetheless, the number of listed companies is still quite small. When are we going to see more companies added?
You're right. Now, experts say that it could be a problem if the KONEX can't attract more companies in the near future. They emphasize that the government needs to play a more active role. Take a look.
There are only 21 companies listed right now, but the government's plan is to increase the number to at least 50 by the end of the year. We need more companies to boost trading.
He also added that the timing of the launch of Konex wasn't good given the sluggish economic conditions right now. Investors don't even show much interest in Kosdaq these days. So it says the government needs to draw up policies that gives tax breaks and other incentives to venture capitals and investors so that they can actually start putting their money into these startups.
Yeah, hopefully backed by the government support, they will fare well in the near future. Thank you very much, Leanne, for your report.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features restrictions is on the rise. Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meaning came on maneuver, trying to cover up the South's true intentions.
Cooling down the summer heat may be the increasingly chilly relationship between Washington and Moscow. U.S. President Barack Obama has scrapped plans to hold a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin following Moscow's decision to grant asylum to the fugitive intelligence leaker Edward Snowden. Kim Ji-yeon reports on how Russia has expressed its disappointment, while also saying talks can still go ahead if Washington has a change of heart.
Russia says it's disappointed by President Obama's decision to cancel the bilateral summit between Washington and Moscow, but added its invitation is still open. The bilateral summit between Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin was due to be held next month on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in St. Petersburg. President Putin's foreign affairs advisor Yuri Ushakov says that the cancellation is clearly linked to the issue of Edward Snowden's asylum. He argues Moscow was not at fault for its handling of the affair. During a phone conference with the press on Wednesday, Ushakov said that the U.S. has avoided signing an extradition agreement with Russia for many years, adding that Washington has repeatedly turned down Moscow's request to extradite people who have committed crimes in Russia. Ushakov went on to say that the move showed the U.S. was not ready to build ties with Moscow on a, quote, equal basis, highlighting the underlying tension between the two countries. Earlier, White House spokesman Jay Carney cited a lack of progress in the bilateral agenda between the two countries as the main reason behind the cancellation, but admitted Snowden was a big factor contributing to the decision.
We obviously disagree with the Russians very strongly about the decision they've made on Mr. Snowden. We disagree with the Russians on a number of other issues, including Syria. And we've made those disagreements plain, both publicly and privately, in our discussions with the Russians.
But Carney added Obama will attend the G20 summit meeting in St. Petersburg early next month after making a visit to Sweden. Russia granted Snowden a one-year temporary asylum last week. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
That whenever you're stuck in heavy traffic, don't you ever wish your car had wings to fly? Well, that dream of yours may just come true sooner than you might think. A modern flying car made its debut to the public at an air show last week. Kim Min-ji has the details on this futuristic vehicle.
Let's take a glimpse at what Earth would look like in the year 2084. This vehicle can fly between buildings, descend vertically, and rotate at a miraculous speed. What you see now is a first flying car developed for commercial use. As the vehicle lands, it folds its wings, turns into a regular car, and speeds down the road. The transition, a car that can change into a plane, aims to make the dream of flying cars possible.
It was neat how quick you could switch between the two. We were making jokes about how, traffic seems to be too big of a burden. You just take off.
The flying car, created by U.S. car manufacturer Terrafugia, was unveiled to the public for the first time during a 10-minute demo at an air show in the U.S. last week. It can accommodate up to 4 passengers and can reach a speed of 185 kilometers per hour in the air and 100 kilometers per hour on the ground.
Well, in terms of the safety precautions, the transition is designed to meet both federal motor vehicle safety standards for driving on the road. So that includes things like you have to have safety cage, crumple zones, airbags, the sorts of features that you have in a modern car today. In addition, we have to meet the ASTM standards for light sport aircraft.
The flying car is still in development, but around 100 people have already made reservations for the vehicle when it launches in 2016. The purchase price of the transition is expected to be around $300,000. 김민지, Arirang News.
The basketball is the latest sport to be rocked by a match-fixing scandal brought to light by the arrest of a head coach earlier this year.
And the law came down on him today. Let's get the details by turning things over to Stephen Che in the Sports Center. Stephen.
Hey guys, match-fixing is a cardinal sin in sports and can lead to jail time. Just ask the former coach Kang Dong-hee, who's found that out firsthand. Former head coach of the Korean Basketball League's Dongbu Promi was arrested earlier this year for fixing 4 matches in 2011. Kang raked in about $42,000 for cheating his team and the fans. As a result, a district court has just ruled that the 47-year-old will have to pay for his crimes, sentencing him to 10 months in prison. However, the damage has been done, and it remains to be seen how the KBL will rebound from the scandal and regain the confidence of the fans. And moving on to badminton, the South Korean men's doubles pair of Lee Yong-dae and Ko Sung-hyun were looking to live up to their top ranking at the BWF World Championships in Guangzhou, China. Lee and Ko cruised through the first 2 rounds and into the round of 16, where they hit a snag. They met a confident 13th-ranked Taiwanese team who defeated the Korean duo in 3 sets. Now, South Korea's hopes in men's doubles rests on Kim Ki-jung and Kim Sa-rang, who defeated their fellow countrymen to advance to the quarterfinals. And finally, stepping up to the plate, we have Thursday night's KBO action. The SK Wyverns took a trip to Mokdong Stadium in Seoul to take on the Nexen Heroes. SK and Nexen both looking for a win to turn things around. SK is first on the board in the top of the second when Kim Sang-hyun's sack fly brings home the runner from third, 1-0 SK. Going to the top of the fourth, SK's Kim Sang-hyun strikes again, hitting home 2 before runner is tagged out. Wyverns 3-0. Now bottom fourth, Nexen shows life. Yoo Han-jun homers to left. SK still up 3-1. Wyverns add another run in the sixth as Kim Kang-min's single brings home 1 more, 4-1, and SK holds on to this one with a final score of 4-1. And looking at the scores from around the league, we have Samsung defeating Hanwha 10-3, NC and Kia tied in the bottom of the 10th 4-4, and Lotte defeating LG 5-4. That does it for me in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back in at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Time to go over to our Kwon-soa at the Weather Center for the latest on the continuing heat. Hi there.
Guys, you know, China's extreme heat made news around the world, as you know, but as we reported earlier, we had a record-breaking temperature of 40 degrees right here in the country in Ulsan today.
Yeah, we can't help but worry about the heat-related illnesses and the severe weather.
Right, yeah, and that's why the Korean Meteorological Administration advises people to stay indoors between 12 and 5 p.m., to not use ovens too much at home, and to never let children or pets alone in cars, and the list goes on.
And of course, all that should be taken into consideration tomorrow as well.
Exactly, because the heat wave will continue for a while, but we will also have a bit of rain tomorrow in the north-central regions, including in Seoul, due to a low-pressure trough moving through the north. So expect up to 30 millimeters in the upper regions, most likely through the morning, but also Chungcheong province could receive up to 10 millimeters during the day. Now down south, it'll be mainly sunny with just a few clouds drifting by. Now temperatures won't be dropping that much overnight, and daytime highs rise to 32 degrees in Seoul, 37 in Daegu, and 33 in Busan. Let's move over to Daejeon and Jeju Island, which won't cool off a bit, and Dokdo and Munkumgang will also be on the hot side. So please stay hydrated, everyone, eat healthy food, and tune in for the forecast regularly. And I'll be there with that for you again after midnight.
And that's our broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Yuji Hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.